Re:Zero Season 1. A boy gets transported to an alternate world and discovers that when he dies, he restarts at an established checkpoint. First the fruit vendor, then at Roswell's mansion, and so on and so forth. He dies numerous times, each taking their toll, traumatizing him, putting him through hell, but through this he saves countless lives. After all, what's one man's life truly worth when he has countless more? What is one man's sanity worth when losing it means saving the world? And at the end of it all, he prevents countless deaths, saves the one he loves, and earns acceptance in a world he was previously unfamiliar with, while also becoming a better person through it all. At the end of it all, he wins. And then he loses everything. Rem is in a coma, forgotten by those around her, and unlike every other time Subaru loses someone, this time he can do nothing to save her. On top of that, Emilia is trapped in Sanctuary, a place where Subaru can't trust anyone, even those he trusted before, while an assassination plot targets the mansion and the people in it. This is how Re:Zero Season 2 begins. What's one man's life worth when you can't change anything? Let's set the stage. Rem is gone, or at least she's in a coma, and everyone's memories of her have been stolen. In the show's term, she has ceased to exist, and this time Subaru can't just go back and save her. He tried. It didn't work. Subaru is the only one who remembers her, and with every interaction he has with those who knew her, it's painfully obvious how much this hurts him. This is the first major loss he's had to deal with, and he can't even find comfort that he's not alone. There's a moment soon after he loses her that fully encapsulates the grief he's feeling. He's sitting in Rem's room, staring at her. There's a knife at the table next to him. Emilia comes in, and after a brief conversation, he tells her to turn away. The knife is right there. You think he's going to kill himself, like he did earlier. But instead, Emilia's arms wrap around him, and he lets her comfort him as he cries. This is a relatively quiet moment. There's no brutal violence, no gruesome death scene, just Subaru grieving the first real loss he's suffered. There's a quiet, lingering pain that can't be taken away. The majority of Season 2 takes place in the Sanctuary, also known as the Witch's Graveyard, the place where the Witch of Envy killed all the other witches 400 years ago. Despite its name, Sanctuary is far from ideal. As Garfield puts it, Sanctuary is a place where demi-humans are trapped. A barrier surrounds the place, preventing anyone with mixed blood from leaving, and the only way to remove the barrier is to pass a series of 3 trials. For various reasons, this task falls upon Emilia. The biggest problem in Sanctuary, at least for Subaru, is that it completely cuts him off from his allies and surrounds him with people he doesn't know if he can trust, while those he can have their own problems. Roswell, Garfield, Ryuzu, all are potential threats, and Emilia is stuck with the trials. Even Ram, upon forgetting her sister, feels like someone he doesn't even know anymore. Of course, this series wouldn't be nearly as emotional if it was all torment, but by having so much of it, the happy moments feel all the more momentous. For these moments, I have to introduce Echidna. Echidna is the Witch of Greed, overseeing the trials in the Witch's Graveyard. In order to meet her, you need to be pushed to the breaking point, which is something Subaru is unfortunately good at. He meets with her several times over the course of the season, and she becomes a sort of mentor figure to him, offering advice and information he can't get elsewhere. To Subaru, she's almost like a teacher, someone he can ask for advice on the occasions that he can meet her. Someone who, well, let's set the stage. Subaru has been alone ever since he got to this world. Not in the meaning that he has no friends, no allies, he gains those over time. He's alone in the fact that he has died over and over and over again, and he can't tell a single person about it. All this pain, agony, torment, he's had to endure it all on his own. But he can tell Echidna, and suddenly all that pain that he's kept inside for so long, all this trauma comes rushing out. Over and over again he repeats this as he collapses to the ground, shaking, unable to hold back the emotions running out. Finally, after all this time, he doesn't have to bear it all alone. Finally, he can talk to someone. He continues to meet with her over the course of the season, and these are some of the only times where he can relax. He has someone who understands him and seems to want to help him. This is the only place he can go where he isn't surrounded by danger. Let's go back to Emilia for a minute. The trials that Emilia goes through torment her greatly. To pass even the first trial, she must face something from her past, and although we don't see what it is, she is left a shaking wreck after every attempt. On its own, this would be bad enough, but right before this, she, like Subaru, lost someone who she was close to. Puck, her father figure, who's been there for her whole life. Puck, her protector, who said he'd never leave her. But now he has, and she's left with only Subaru for support. Even before the trials, she's been left emotionally vulnerable because of this loss. After the trials, when she wakes up to find Subaru comforting her, it helps her greatly, and she even says, Unfortunately, this turns out to be more true than we thought, as the one time she wakes up without Subaru next to her, she goes mad, swallowing the entire sanctuary and even Subaru, who kills himself rather than be loved by who he thinks is the Witch of Envy. He wakes up back at the trials and finds himself afraid to even touch her again. Compounding this in subsequent loops, Subaru discovers that she has been going insane every time he leaves for the mansion. Every time he leaves, he's leaving her on her own. But that isn't all that happens. Roswell makes it snow, freezing everything, and fueling the villagers' fear of Amelia. Without Subaru to support her through this, she is left completely isolated, and unable to handle this, she goes mad. Subaru has to witness this several other times during the season, and although she is never directly the cause of his death, he always ends up dying during this. Let's go back to Beatrice for a minute. It's Subaru's second loop back at the mansion. Elsa has attacked. Frederica, Ram, Petra, they're all dead, and Subaru is about to be next. Resolving himself to his death, he refuses to let Rem meet the same fate, and attempts to protect her. Upon opening the door, however, he finds himself in Beatrice's library. Beatrice has saved him, in the process allowing Elsa to kill Rem and preventing him from dying to go back and save her. Subaru, furious and distraught, screams at her and tells her it's all her fault, and that's when he knocks her over and sees the book she's holding. It's a gospel. The same book the witch cultist had. The moment that follows, I don't have the words to describe. Beatrice, who has maintained her cold, irritated attitude towards Subaru ever since they first met, has now been pushed to the point of breaking by the man she thought might be the one to save her. The man she let into her heart. And this man, who has been nothing but friendly towards her throughout the whole series, has just broken her heart. Through subsequent loops, Subaru discovers that Beatrice is waiting for that person. Has been waiting, in fact, ever since she formed a contract 400 years ago. For 400 years, she has been the guardian of this library. Waiting, hoping for that person to walk through those doors. Waiting for the one who would be that person. Some people did, of course, but none of them turned out to be that person. One after another, her heart was first lifted and then broken. As one after another, they all left. For 400 years. By now, she has all but given up on finding that person and just wants to die. But being a spirit, she can't even die by her own hand. When she reveals this to Subaru, she forces him to make a choice. Be that person. Be everything for her. Put her first above all else and free her from her misery. Or kill her. But let's go back to that contract. That contract was made by the one person Subaru found solace in this season. The one person he thought he could rely on. Echidna. Echidna, the one person who can understand his isolation, has inflicted upon Beatrice the same isolation. And why did she make that contract? Because she wanted to see who Beatrice would choose. And if she never chose anyone, all the better. This person, who seemed genuinely to care, has finally revealed the full extent to which she is truly the Witch of Greed. Let's go back for a moment to when Subaru is sitting next to Rem in that room. He's been through so much by this point, dying over and over again. Sure, he managed to pull through at the end, save almost everyone he cared about. But the one person he couldn't save was one of the most important people in the world to him. Was any of this worth it if he's just going to lose anyway? Looking back on it now, after watching his torment throughout the season, you almost wish he could have just ended it there. Picked up that knife and killed himself once and for all. And maybe he did too. If he could have been able to avoid all the pain and trauma waiting for him. But picking up that knife wouldn't have changed anything. He wouldn't have ended it. He would have had to just do it all over again. And I think this adds just another layer to this moment, and every moment like this. No matter what Subaru goes through, no matter what he loses or fails to save, he has no choice but to just keep moving forward.